Alright, welcome back to Black Magic TV in the new studio. And the first guest, the birthday boy, my good friend, Mylan, my communist friend from the Eastern European region, Chelesnik. Mylan. Also, Mylan, #1 union operator, hot rodder, and #1 subscriber to Black Magic TV.
Number one Ween fan on Spotify.
#1 Ween
well.
fan on Spotify.
I listen to more Ween than anyone else on Spotify. They sent us an award.
I will let the cat out of the bag so you don't buy an aftermarket Ween ticket. Dan and I are currently and have been engaged in the process of getting all of us into the Ween show, because we went to buy tickets for Ween for your birthday present, and then that's when I found out they were sold out and they're $300, which undoubtedly day of we can probably buy them for less than original value, because that's usually how it goes now. But we will be pushing little daisies and making them come up. Well, welcome, finally. I know you're excited for this.
Here we are. We're
Mylan's
here.
upset because his wife, Kelsey, who's been on the program before, did not tell him where he was coming. And he had a entire outfit, apparently, he wanted to wear on the show. But now here we are. Now you grew up here in Kansas City area.
Always in Kansas City. KCK, Roland Park, Shawnee.
Close to the downtown area. What year? Because Mylan just turned 30. So you graduated high school in
2012.
Okay. Shit, dude. Whoa. That's like, I was like 6 years out of college. 2012. Let's see. What year is it now? 2023. Yeah, so I was deep. By the time you graduated high school, I was deep into a life of crime. I was like a couple years away from the rock bottom scenario. But you used to, growing up, always into cars.
Always.
I know you've told me your grandpa owned a body shop.
Many
Body shops.
Kansas City body shops. My uncle always worked at my grandpa's body shop.
Right.
And
Now,
then,
did he have one and always moved it around, or did he own multiple at one time?
Well, he would I think he would own multiple.
Right.
You know, he ran the Deaf and Ball body shop and then had his own. And
Wow.
so, he was kind of double dipping a little
Double
bit.
dipping a little bit.
There, who knows what was going on. I feel like there was a lot of stuff that fell off a truck from that place.
Yeah, a lot of equipment ended up in your grandpa's
Yeah.
shop to make them have a business.
Yeah, my first respirator, I think, my uncle gave me. It was like, man, this delivered a Deaf and Ball.
Dude, I remember when that shop closed, because a bunch of guys came to work at the Peterbilt shop I was working at. That was right when I first got into the body shop industry. I worked at Peterbilt. That was my first job. Working on the big trucks. Sucked. Paid the most at the time, but I ended up getting hurt on the job. It was not a lot of safety regs going on at the
I think that's just how it goes, working at a semi shop. I got a bunch of friends that I came up with, and they all went, they went to UT Technical School in Indy, and they all, learned how to work on trucks, and then they ended up just working on the trailers of the truck. And it's kind of like, whoa, I feel like the money's in the tractor, not the trailer.
Yeah, there's money in the trailers too. I have a bunch of friends that are trailer mechanics, but shit, everybody I know that is a trailer mechanic was literally just some start off some jabroni kid that didn't have any skills and never had to go to a tech school to learn how to work on trailers. It was more on the job training. I felt if you went to diesel school, yeah, you should probably why aren't you working on diesel trucks?
You went to diesel school. Why aren't you working on a diesel?
Diesel shops are weird though, because ones that have 2 shifts, so during the day, it would be your job to tear the engine apart. And then it would be the second shift guy's job to come in and put back together, or vice versa, however the job lied. Because they had one shop, but they ran 2 shifts. So it was like, I just thought it was real weird. It's like, well, if something messes up, like, whose fault is it?
I don't know. That's my least favorite thing, is to like get into a project and like go through somebody's boxes and be like, all right, you know, what did you throw away that you thought we wouldn't have to reuse?
Dude, I've worked at so many shops where I've gone in and it's been like, hey, here's this Camaro. I can put a Camaro together with like a 67, 68, 69 Camaro. I can put one of those together. No book. I know every nut and bolt because I've put 10 of them together at shops I've worked at where they've been like, well, here's the box of stuff. Hey, this rack is the entire car. No one labeled anything. And I just had to figure it out a couple times. To where I should probably just get in the business of building Camaros and selling them. I know them so good.
Well, they're popular at car shows.
Yeah, but they also suck. They're like the lamest car. I'm not a huge fan of the Chevy Camaro.
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like a Corvette. Like, once you've seen one good one, like.
Well, there's a thing. That's the thing about Corvettes. It garners the question: are there any good ones? Because in my world, the answer is absolutely not.
The early inline 6 Corvettes are pretty cool.
No.
The blue flame.
Do you know what the problem with it is?
It's not very fast.
It's a Corvette.
Corvette.
Corvettes. These are my top 5 least favorite cars. Topping the list is the Corvette. In a strong second place is the Chevrolet Corvair. Just a nightmare of a vehicle. Third on that list is Ford Mustang. I don't care what year it is. I think they're just garbage. They're turds. I just remember it being that car where all these dudes were like, oh, I got a Fox body. Like, it was like the coolest thing to have a Fox body. And I was just like, dude, they're not cool. You look like Vanilla Ice.
I bought a Fox body Mustang for $200 from a guy. Never picked it up from his house.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened to it.
If you're watching, we're going to need that Mustang.
Yeah, we need that Mustang back.
We need that Mustang
They're starting to be worth real money now.
I always told people if I ever was like a billionaire, I would just start buying up the cars I hated. And then like a staunch Christian or anyone, it would be full-blown Fahrenheit 451, and I would just start burning the cars so that I would just try to erase them from existence.
Hey, Whistling Diesel, if you're watching and you'd like to underwrite, you know, an endeavor, like,
yes.
We've got a guy, he's got an idea.
I've got an idea.
Happen.
I need some money, and we can make it happen. But now I'm a Dodge guy. I became a Dodge guy. Well, since last we met, I've become a full-blown Mo partner.
Say goodbye to all your money.
Yeah. I'm only building a slant 6 van. The rarest of all straight 6s, apparently. The slant 6. Mylan's been helping me build my van. It's been quite the... we've been to junkyards where we found out I have a strong fear of being bitten by a snake, which Mylan generously mocked me for, and then 2 seconds later screamed because he saw a spider. So
we'll carry each other through the
we
woods,
both have a fear at this different fear. I saw the spider, was like, ooh, I need that part, and just I'll fight you with my screwdriver, sir.
Not a big fan of spiders.
Have you always, so lifelong car relationship with automobiles?
Forever.
Obviously forever.
Forever. My mom sent me a picture of me in my first car as a toddler the other day. My dad built a cardboard box and drew a old car on it, on the side of it, and I loved sitting in the box driving my car. So, and then she sent me a picture of me sitting in my Model T, and I was like, all right, look at that. Some things don't change.
You made it happen. I've told the story before. I grew up around dirt track racing for my dad's friends, and then they would all just sit around and tell me stories about drag racing down at Paul's Drive-In, and like there's like these wild tales that like a dude would show up that had like a tree in the back of a truck, and they would be like racing for pink slips and shit and like crazy things. I've heard about some crazy times that like my dad and his buddies engaged in KCK, and then I later was doing the same thing, street racing and going down to Speaker Road and down by the GM plant. That was the hot place. Was down by the GM plant when I was
the Fairfax
in high school.
The Fairfax races.
It was a good time. I remember back then. It's so crazy how technology has advanced, because back then, if you had like a 13-second car, you know, that was
fast. That was a fast car.
Like, whoa. Like, I had a 15, like, at the track quarter mile, my CRX ran a 15.3 flat. That's what I bracket raced it at. Consistent. And I could hit that time, like, perfectly. And it was a fast car for in the import world. I was, like, whooping ass on the street. Now, also, it's because street racing, you're dealing with a lot of jabronis that don't know how to drive, and they also don't have the $50 set of drag slicks that fell off the Aerospeed truck like I had. My CRX was tight, dude. We made working ram air induction. It had the 1.6ZC engine. It had a B&M shift kit and short throw shifter in it. It had this like crazy race exhaust. I stripped the entire interior. I took the heater box out of it. The only thing, it had a small radio with 2 6x9s, no passenger seat. People would get in to ride with me, and they'd just have to sit on the floorboard. And they'd be like, "What the hell, dude?" I'm like, "Hey, it's a race car.
It's a race car.
Let's go fast. It was a race car." I wish I would have. I sold that car. I kept blowing the head gasket off that motor, but I sold the car.
Maybe time for a little machine work at that point.
Yeah, it needed some machine work, but at 17 years old, what did I know about that? I sold it and bought a 69 Chevy short bed for $1,500. Which, again, I
wish you had that.
Wish I had that one.
Yeah, those days are long gone.
CST short bed, 355, turbo 400 with a B&M ratchet shifter on the floor. Just big old fatty tires on the back. Two-tone gray, just a Wyandotte County special paint job, and I used to just drive the shit out of it.
I always wanted a 67 to 72, you know, and all my friends had 67 to 72s, and I had a square body, and they had square bodies too, but I was like, boy, I sure like that older, you know, because my dad had a custom,
right,
I want to say 68,
okay,
short bed, step side. It was, do you know Helmet?
Yeah, I know Helmet.
Helmet built that truck, and it had like Cadillac 472, had like some Dodge parts, had like Dodge door handles, like had weird like dual headlights. It was chopped like 3 to 6 inches.
I know that. I think that truck is still around.
Orange. It might still be around.
That truck is still around.
He won World of Wheels Best of Show. Met George Barris.
Oh, nice.
Like has some photos, and then
he probably was he with your mom then?
No.
I would say probably George Barris, probably notorious pervert.
I mean,
every time I've met that dude at car shows, he's just too busy perving on ladies.
Sounds about right.
I think he's dead now, right? Is he dead?
No, I think George Barris is still alive. Gene Winfield's still alive.
Gene Winfield's still alive. He's always on social media.
He's in Wichita, Kansas half the year.
Yeah. Hanging out down at Starbird's. Well, fuck, it's so hot out there.
Oh, Daryl Starbird. My dad met Daryl Starbird at that same event.
Yeah.
It was, World Wheels. I actually think he won second place.
They're all KKOA guys. Those guys are all the guys that started the KKOA thing.
Yeah.
So that's why they have the one here, or the one in Salina. It's because they had them all over. So they had the Lead Sled Spectacular. You ever been out to that?
Never been to that one.
It used to be gigantic. We used to go when I was in the car club, the Bunk Rods. We would go it was like a mandatory. It was requirement for being a member was that you had to go to Salina, and we'd boogie down. We'd have a hell of a time.
Well, see, this is like the first time in my life I've ever owned like multiple vehicles that can I can feel safe traveling outside of like my 15-mile bubble that I exist in. You know, my little sphere. You know, people are like, "You want to go to this?" I'm like, "Nope, can't do that." You know, I was like, "Don't think I can make it." The truck vibrates really bad at highway speed, so all here for back roads.
I just send it now. I just let go of those thoughts
and Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah, let Jesus take the wheel. I let Chip Foose take the wheel.
Chip Foose take the wheel.
Our Lord and Savior, Chip Foose. I was like really hoping when I added him at Instagram after my car broke yesterday that he would like respond and be like, "That's not my fault."
It's not my fault.
I'm sure he doesn't do his own social media. Shout out to Chip Foose.
Come on, Chip.
I mean, fuck, Rides was tight back in the day. Wasn't that his show, Rides?
Tyler needs Overhaul.
Oh, Overhauling. That was his show. The guy from Overhauling did Rides. Overhauling, yeah.
When I had my El Camino, my mom actually was like, maybe we should submit your car to this Overhauling show. And I think we looked at it actually. We're like, maybe we should like write up some good sob story. And
yeah,
we're like, all right.
I went to, when I was in school, when I was at Wyotech, a guy that lived in the dorm apartment thing that I started living there, then later found my own housing. He had his car done on fucking Overhauling, and after they do it, they make you sign a contract, and they kept the car for like 2 years taking it to car shows. So you really don't get your car back for like 3 years.
I always wondered if those cars were like the Pimp My Ride shows or cars.
Oh yeah,
where it's like, you know, 5 years down the line, looking back on them in retrospect, it's like, ooh, you know, this is not good. Like, this was a dangerous car they built. Like, I can only figure they have just like gallons of mud in those cars. You know, like
there's a guy on YouTube that goes around and finds those.
I've seen the guy that finds the Monster Garage.
I haven't seen that guy.
That guy, I'm not saying it was the guy that goes and finds them, but a bunch of the Monster Garage cars were in Kansas City. Like some guy bought them, like the Miata airplane thing, the hearse with like the excavator on the back of it. Like there's somebody that owned a bunch of them because you know they made their money on them and kick them to the curb.
Yeah, kick them to the curb.
You know,
the coolest one was that Chevy that they had. They built that, wasn't it like a Bel Air that they chopped the top on? And that one, it's like all the dudes were like ancient, and they're like some of the guys that we just named. You know, they're like, but they're like working on that car, and it's like, I don't think they built this in 7 days. Yeah, like, I think it took a little longer. But then like Hot Dog painted it. It's like, knowing body work, it's like, yeah, that car's way too nice. This is like, he probably was like, I'm keeping this one. This is my car.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
That was like Jesse James destroying the losers. You know, it's like no tools for you guys, and the car you guys built, mashed.
Mashed. The coolest episode, I think it was that. It might have been one of those Motorcycle Mania.
Those were good
documentaries. But like at one point, I think it was one of those, and he's building like maybe when he built that Kid Rock bike or whatever. But it was like he's like, yeah, and then I got these guys, my friends, to play, and it's just Fu Manchu playing in his shop, like full blast. I was like, oh, that's badass.
Those are the shows that kind of built my, you know, kind of helped build my like idea of what you could do.
Right.
And I was like, oh, look at this. Like, you know, like especially like the Jesse James stuff. It's like, wow, he just like took this piece of sheet metal and like beat it till it looked like a sack of walnuts, and next thing you know, it's a gas tank.
Yeah.
And I was like, nobody's doing that. Nobody's showing that, at least. You know, that and Boyd Coddington's show. People hate that show.
I loved it.
I loved it. I loved, who's the black guy in the...
Lee.
Lee, and who's the old guy that was ended up being Lee's buddy?
God, because that guy died.
He died. He was great.
His name Ray?
Ray.
Was it Ray?
And Little Blue Bear and
Blue Bear. That guy still builds hot rods. That Dwayne dude still builds cars. Charlie Hutton is still a very prominent name. He has his own paint shop. He does very high-end paint jobs. They're
Boyd
really
Coddington
nice.
was the real deal.
Yeah.
You know,
like
I mean, he
his
invented
shop,
a whole... I mean, Chip Foose wouldn't exist without Boyd Coddington.
Right. They built a lot of cool cars. They showed a lot more of like the street rod things that they built. But I remember watching that show, and that turned me on to things. And then I used to read like the Horse Backstreet Choppers. But then it came a point where it's like I either I only liked cars, and I wanted to go to film school originally. And when I said I wanted to go to film school, my grandma laughed in my face and was like, "Yeah, we're not giving you any money," because I had a college fund. It equivalated to like 50. It was so little money that I just convinced my grandpa to let me buy a Chevy Caprice once with it.
Please.
Before I like even went to school.
It was $500.
It was $1,200.
$1,200.
It was $1,200.
Here's one book.
Yeah, but I want to go to film school, and she laughed in my face and was like, "That's not a career." And so then I was like, "Well, shit." And then later on down the road, I had always worked on cars. So I was like, I think I want to build custom cars. Like, I want to build hot rods. And I told her that, and she laughed in my face again. I said, okay, well, we'll see. And Scott Hachinsky, who you met.
Right.
That guy
World
you
of
met
Wheels.
at World of Wheels. Scott and his brother Tim. I became friends with Jake. And that was like, shit wasn't the tightest in my household when I was a teenager. But they lived down the street, and I could go over to Tim's house at any time, and he would be probably out in the shop working on something. He was always building drag cars, painting shit, doing all kinds of stuff. And Scott was always buying some old car and like redoing it. He had closed down his body shop he had, and I slowly started learning, which then turned into like Scott working out of this guy's shop building these wild lowriders for these dope dealers that he knew. And like that turned me on to like this whole other culture of people that were like, dude, just crazy cars. 85 El Camino with like plush velour in the whole bed and like spades airbrushed all over it. But the dude was putting like an 800 horsepower motor in it. You know what I mean? So it was like the weirdest combination. But one day Scott was like, yo, let's save you like a lot of time, which ended up costing me, like, I got fucked over on student loans like everyone did my age. But let's find you somewhere to go where you can learn like the state of the art process of doing all this, and you're not working for $10 an hour polishing cars going, am I ever going to learn how to fix anything? So that's when we found Wyotech, and I went to school. But
I think we were talking about like the Saturday morning, Sunday morning car TV shows that were on, like
Power Nation.
Every single episode break. Wyotech, UT Tech, UTI or whatever. And I was like, well, maybe that's the thing.
Yeah.
And you're the only person I know that actually went to Wyotech. Well, actually, I take that back. There was a guy I went to high school with, and he went to Wyotech, and he, like, drove a... What's the Dodge version of, like, the Mitsubishi Mighty Max? The Pup? The D50. It was D50.
Yep.
And he drove it out there to Wyoming. And then I remember he graduated school, and the D50 came back in the back of a U-Haul truck. Because when everybody graduates out there, there's not a trailer to be found at like 150 miles.
Right.
So he rented a U-Haul truck, told him he was just moving his stuff because you can't put a car in the back of a U-Haul truck.
Right.
There was a Harley-Davidson dealership there in town. They like pushed it up on their loading dock down the street from his house, pulled it in the U-Haul truck, and then brought it back to Kansas City. And I think it was like, he went for like the chassis fabrication.
Yeah.
And so it was like Z'd and bagged, but like no airbags.
Yeah,
nothing.
all halfway done.
Yeah, it's like half done. That's like, man.
I had a door popper kit. We didn't have time to install it, but we did shave the handles on 3 of the doors. I had a Chevy Caprice, and then I still never...
I had a door popper kit once. I remember it was in this like blister pack.
Yeah.
It was really old. And then my cousin had a 2-wheel drive K5 Blazer, square body. It's purple. Yeah. And I remember seeing it a long time ago, like out on the streets. And then when he got it, it was done. I mean, it was like, it had not aged well, but it had shaved door handles. And I remember those door popper things, and like actually seeing them installed for the first time. I was like, this is crap. Like, and I took that blister pack of door poppers and I put them in the trash. I said,
Yeah.
I said, there's no use for these. Like maybe for like a trunk latch or something.
Right.
Like, I think that's
what they came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the only good thing you can use a door popper kit for is like a trunk.
Yeah. Well, now they have like really nice ones that have these like metal pistons, and they're like pagoonk, and they like have enough power
Shoots
to
it
open up.
open.
Yeah. And they make like a spring kit to like push out on it, but no, they're not.
You'll never see me build a car with shaved door handles ever.
I might, but it would be
some
like very
shaved
specific.
side marker lights. That's the.
Yeah, it would be a very specific thing if I did it.
I remember the first time I experienced a door popper. My grandma had this Cadillac, and I remember opening the glove box door and like pressing the yellow button and watching the trunk open.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then those are the ones that also, when you close them, it like latch them. And
That same Cadillac, it was like probably like a 89, 90 sedan DeVille, silver, had like the little turn signal lights up on the fronts of the fenders.
Right.
My parents and I were going to the lake, I think, and I was little. I mean, I was like probably less than 3 or 4 years old. Heat of the summer, probably a day like today, like 100 degrees. The door was open. I shut the door, and then I remember being in the car with all the windows rolled up.
Oh, Jesus.
And not knowing how to get out of the car.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, like looking back, it's like, oh, that's how these terrible things happen.
That's
it's
how
like,
children die these days.
that's how, like, you know, it's like, I remember like trying the door handle, like maybe I wasn't strong enough to open it up, or the door was just incredibly heavy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know, this is
Like,
danger.
it's hot in here.
Danger.
Yeah, man. I remember, dude, we had just a wild, like, riding in the backs of pickup trucks around town.
I remember riding in the back, like I was definitely on the tail end of that, being able to like put your dogs and children in the back of the truck. I still put my dog in the back of the truck, but she jumps out at like, Ruth,
Yeah.
I put her in like the back of the Toyota and probably the Super Duty, and like she hopped out, and then at like the red light or the stop sign or whatever, she was like at the door, and I was like, oh, like you can't do that. Look like you're inside now.
Merlin, we're in the Dodge last night at the dog park, and I go to start pulling off. That crazy bastard jumps out the van window, dude. That's like 6 feet in the air, and he's tiny, and I was just like, stop the van. I'm like, yo, guy, like, what are you doing? Now I'm like terrified. I'm like, I'm gonna be driving down the road. He's gonna jump out while I'm moving. I'm gonna run him over.
Suicidal dog.
Yeah.
And now, like,
He might be Japanese.
Yeah,
Kamikaze.
Now Ruth, she'll like, I have those like vent visors on the Super Duty.
Yeah.
And they're all broken in the back now because Ruth will stand on the window switch and roll her head up in the window. And it's like, you know, I'm going down the highway, and like, you know, child locks will be off or whatever. They don't work. And like, next thing I know, my dog's like freaking out in the back seat. And I'm
rolling
like,
its face up in the fucking
rolling
window.
its head up in the window, like standing on the thing.
Jesus.
It's just like, God, dog, you know, not looking good for you.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, so those TV shows, that's definitely a way to
Yeah, I mean,
motivate
it
anybody
exposes
into,
you.
like-
You know, I never took them as being like a realistic thing. Like, even as like a little kid, I was like, how are they building a car in 7 days?
Right. No, it's impossible. It's
I've
like
spray
virtually
painted
impossible.
stuff, and it takes a long time for that paint to dry. Like,
Yeah, it's like impossible. But also like those Mad Fabricators videos we've talked about.
Those are great.
All that early 2000s, like there was like a big, the whole culture at the time. It was like all about exposing people to like, hey, this is cool. There's cool stuff happening with cool cars, and you could be doing cool stuff with cool cars if you wanted to, you know. Which is neat because it got a lot of people involved in hot rodding and understanding like, oh, like I've never been a dork that's like, for a brief second I was probably like, oh yeah, it's got to be all over, like it's got to be period correct, and then quickly I was like, that's stupid. Like I saw this thing with Ed Roth talking about how like, yo, you think that if I could have went to the store and bought an entire disc brake set for any car I wanted and put it on there, I would have done that because that would have been way better than what I had. Like, it would have been easier and better. And I was just like, oh, even the guy who built those cars isn't like, oh, they should all be
maybe just
period, just like we did them in 55. He was like, no, I think technology is cool, and if you use it right.
All of those people, like, hot rod, like, if you went back and, like, gave them, like, a Summit Racing catalog, like, went back in 1955, and we're like, look at all this stuff. They would be putting, like, billet and blowers and, you know, whatever, fuel injection on.
They would be making those drawings that they were doing.
They want the best. I mean,
the best.
You know, they didn't put drum brakes on the front because they thought it was cool. It was like, well, it's the best we got right now.
Yeah, we got these finned drum brakes. We could put those on there. Where does the obsession come of, like, the pre-war Ford stuff?
It's just, you know, kind of separates you from all the rest, yeah.
In what way?
I don't know. I think they're just kind of like a cut above those cars.
Cut above the
cut above, you know. Like,
but like also,
premium.
But why are all the pre-war guys like? They're real dorky about it being.
You get nerd out about it. You know?
It's gotta be original.
There's.
I'll put a small block Chevy in a pre-war Ford real quick.
You know, I think that it depends. Like a 50s, 60s era car, hot rod, like. If you look at, like, the little books, you know, that they put out, there's a ton of small blocks. And like, it didn't have to be a flathead.
Right.
You know, it didn't have to be a Y block or something.
I'm looking at the American Graffiti car.
Yeah.
You know?
Small block Chevy. It works, you know?
Yeah.
It's the, I don't know, the pre-war cars. There's, like, cool stuff. You know, you hate to, it's a fine line between, like, a traditional hot rod and a street rod. That's, you know, all of a sudden, you know, like, start putting 15-inch wheels on things. Next thing you know, they're billet, and then, you know, your door handles are shaved, and it's got like a minivan seat inside of it.
There's only one wheel.
The slotted mag.
The slotted mag. That's it. It goes on everything.
I mounted two.
You building a gasser?
Slotted mags.
You building a hot rod?
Slotted mags.
You building a van?
Slotted mags.
Slotted mag goes on anything. It's the slotted Keystone mag might be the perfect wheel.
It's pretty good. It's one piece. It's light. It's one piece. I mean,
you building a 4-wheel drive lifted truck?
Slotted mag.
They go on everything.
I like steel wheels. I've really come around to like. There's a lot of cool steel wheels.
There are. I do like those like big ass steel wheels that they would put on the Fords. I don't have a
Tech or I'm trying to.
There's like a couple pre-war cars I really like.
Makes all those. They look like an old wheel, but they're like a 17.
Yeah, I like those. Well, you know, I like those tall T coupes a lot. I've always wanted one of those.
Slotted mag.
Slotted. It would have big old fatty slotted
skinnies in the front
with those Coker drag street radial
the pie cut radials.
Yeah,
pie crust radials. Those are cool.
Get those. Do some donuts. Do some burnouts in them all day.
I like regularly mount tires that were made like 50 years before I was even born. Like ancient tires that I'm like, all right, you know.
I thought about putting. You gave me those 10-inch wide ones, and I got those Prowlers.
They're probably fine.
I think they're fine, and I was really like, man, should we get a small adapter and put those tins on the back of the Dodge and with
Jason Brunskill would probably drive to Colorado on those tires.
Jason Brunskill would tow a car on them.
You need to interview that guy.
I've been trying to. Jason's a wild dude.
He's the real deal.
He's watching this right now. We see you, Jason. We see you watching.
He's the real deal.
He's about to go, dude. He's going to the Van Nats, and his entire goal is to bring more vans than anyone's ever brought. He's like, everybody has more than one van, but nobody's ever brought 3 of their own vans. He was trying to take 4.
He reached out to Kelsey and I
about
he's like, would you like to drive some of my vans out? He's like, I've got some that are real solid. And I was like, man, that's right around the time of my birthday and stuff. Like,
And Kelsey's birthday.
And Kelsey's birthday, I was like, I can't get away. That sounds like so much fun.
For half a minute, I didn't realize the show was next weekend, but in my head, after putting the 4-speed in the van, I was like, I could drive this to Minnesota now. Like, I was going to drive to Full Tilt Boogie, but then I looked, it's like, oh, it's in 8 days. Like, I can't. I don't have the cash flow to do that. Like, that's going to cost me $1 bajillion in gas in that.
If that van had air conditioning, I'd say you could drive it to Van Nats in Colorado.
Yeah, I could probably drive it there.
I think it'd make it.
I'd just have to do it at night
It'd be,
to keep cool.
You'd cook during the day. Although, you know, like I've got plenty of cars that don't have air conditioning. You know, it makes you tough. Like,
yeah, I very rarely have had a car that has air conditioning.
My Super Duty, first vehicle I ever owned with air conditioning, and I worked building. I was in my carpentry phase of life, and I had this guy Corn Dog that was like my under person.
Corn Dog.
And he was worthless.
Yeah.
And
well, his name's Corn Dog.
When I got that truck, he thought it was so cool, and I was like, yeah, it's great. AC doesn't work. And I told him that the air conditioning didn't work, because I knew if I told him the air conditioning worked, he would be in it all day. Like, he'd go fire it up and just be sitting in the AC, and I'd be like, you're leaving me hanging here, man. Like,
and also you're running fuel down.
Yeah, you're running the fuel down. You aren't paying for that. And so, like, we would be driving back from like Joplin, Missouri from a job, no air conditioning, heat of the summer, and I would just be suffering. But I'm like, I can't turn that AC on and let him know that it works.
I can't let Corn Dog know
that it works, or else he's going to be in there every day.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be horrible. Corn Dog.
Corn Dog.
How do you get that name?
Dude, I don't know.
I guess I've had some pretty wild nicknames.
That guy is just like one of those people that's just like a series of bad decisions, you know. I feel like I'm a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
But this guy, ooh.
I'm a pretty, I represent those remarks. I'm definitely a cautionary tale.
Learn from my mistakes. That's why I'm like.
Eventually, I do that. I have to.
That's why I'm trying to invest in Wilbur. You know.
Yeah.
Like, learn. Let me teach you some.
I think that's why I'm trying to invest in all of you
Yeah.
dinguses, is because.
It's like I know some things. I learned it the hard way.
I do know some things.
I've wasted a lot of money getting to where I'm at right now. You know.
Money. Time. Time in handcuffs will really make you realize, oh, let's not do those things again.
Yeah, that's enough.
That's enough.
That's enough.
That's enough of that. Could have been building more cars.
Could have been building more cars.
I also didn't realize how many. The other day I was like thinking about all the cars I've built.
Yeah, just think about how much money the government bled out of you in $20 bill installments here and there that, you know, could have gone.
Yeah, it's
for
always
cool
$100.
cars.
$100. It's crazy.
I just feel like I had friends that were kind of the cautionary tales. So it's like, ooh, man, you guys getting in trouble. I don't think I'm going to do that.
Our problem was that we were like, there was other people around us, me and the people I was associated with, that were definitely not the best at being low key. So instead of like taking the cautionary tale of, yo, just don't do this, our idea was like, okay, they're up here, we're gonna come way down here and just fly right under the radar. And we were very successful until
You're not.
the Adderall turned cocaine turned methamphetamine addiction got the best of me. That will get you every time. But for everyone that's out there, if you're taking Adderall, don't get it twisted, Playboy. You're
taking meth.
You're taking meth. That's methylmil. You are a tweaker. And just come to terms with that and stop taking that shit, because it is not good for you. Everyone, like, I see people and I'm like, yo, I've had to ask, like, yo, is that person fucking, were they, like, are they sober now or something? Were they, like, a crackhead or a meth head or something? They're like, no, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, man, they've just been on Adderall since they were a kid. And now they got that sunken face. They look just like an
I remember going to like Boy
junkie.
Scout camp, and there was like 13-year-old kids that were like on Ritalin.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? You know, like, I don't know. Maybe it's got a place, but like, I feel like I've seen enough people that it's like I don't want anything to do with that. You know, like people tell me all the time, they're like, "You're real ADD. You should take Adderall," and I'm like, "No,
don't do that." That's what happened to me.
You know,
one night I was out, and everybody was like, I refused to do anything. I had the cautionary tale of my older sister and some of her friends of like, yo, I had a bad experience where I walked into a house, saw a bunch of people shooting up with needles once, and it freaked me out. And I was like, I don't want to be anything like these people. So I've never shot a drug into my vein. But then beyond that, it was always like, all the older black guys I hung out with, like, because I worked at Jiffy Lube on State Avenue, 78th and State. So all these older cats, they would always tell me like, dude, you're good with just weed, dude.
Yeah.
Maybe you cut back your drinking a little and stick with the weed. Because I would early on, I would get down, black out, drive my car home at 19. You know what I mean? And then I tamed out of that. I realized okay, I don't need to drink. But man, one night in Westport, I remember the exact moment. I'm in the basement of the Union. All my homies, everybody's divvying out Adderall, these 10 milligram pills to each other, and I never did pills because I thought they were you were a drug addict. I was selling Molly, dude. Never done Molly. I was selling it, making a killing, buying it for $1 a piece and flipping it at the bar. You know what I mean? And but never done it. And that one night, I was half lit, drunk, stoned, and somebody's significant other was in the medical field, and they're like, "Oh, with knowing what I know about Tyler, he should probably be on this."
Yeah.
And then I took it, and I stayed up all night painting the gas tank.
This is pretty cool.
And I was like, "Oh, this is tight." And then next thing you know, I'm buying it myself. Next thing you know, I'm doing 330s a day. I'd take those football-shaped pills. I'd cut it in half. I'd take part of it and swallow it. I'd take a quarter of it and snort it, and then I'd chew the other part and eat it, an hour later. And I do that 3 times a day. I'd be at this paint shop. The guy's like, "Where are you going?" I'm out there grinding up Adderall and snorting it. Got wild.
Yeah, I mean,
it gets wild.
Everybody talks about the opioid epidemic in the United States, and it's I think we've got an amphetamine.
Oh, we have everything epidemic, dude.
You know.
It's just a pharmaceutical epidemic.
After World War II, there was all this leftover amphetamines from the war, and it's what are we going to do with them? It's well, let's give them to housewives. Let's diet.
Oh, are you depressed?
Do all this.
Here you go. Are you need to go on a diet? I'll never forget that episode of Saved by the Bell. There's an episode of Saved by the Bell where, the chick from Showgirls, she gets addicted to speed, and then it's a whole PSA episode. You know what I mean? Good old television back then.
Yeah.
They were shooting the drug-free campaign commercial in one, and then the guy that was the spokesperson was like, "You guys coming to this party?" And they go to the party. He's getting high, and they're like, "Hey man, you're not really about this not doing drugs thing, dude." And it's we'll do some drugs, but I don't know if you need speed. I don't know if it has a good place. Weed is cool. Weed is tight. Mushrooms are tight.
Yeah.
I guess anything real cocaine is cool. If you can get actual just uncut cocaine, because I could back in the day. And that's a different thing. It's not like in the movies where you're not Tony Montana it just makes you want to dance and have fun for 4 hours. But you don't stay up all night like some weirdo until you start doing it every day, and then you start staying up I used to stay up for 3 or 4 days, and then sleep 17 hours. Then I'd stay up for 3 or 4 days, sleep for 17 hours. I was working at the Riot Room, all the time. There'd be so many times where Candace and Chris Dubers would take me down to the office, "We're worried about you," and I'd be like, "I just sold everyone that works here drugs in the last week. You guys are worried about me? I'm fine."
I never really made it over to the Riot Room. I didn't like that place. I would go there, and I thought it was the worst bar. I was like, this place isn't a good place to see a show. The bar sucks because it's this weird round bar.
Yeah.
That you can't get service at. The stage is up high, and then there's like stair steps down, like the opposite of how it should be.
Yeah.
I like the Beaumont Club. I think that was Kansas City's best, most underrated.
The Riot Room was awesome. That's where I met Logan from Hillsiders. First day he moved here, instantly.
I feel like everybody I know
became
worked
friends.
at Riot Room.
Jerry, Uncle Jerry. That's where Uncle Jerry and I met. But see, like, so I met Dan, Justin, and Keenan just from our friend group. John Vera. Dan, Justin, and Keenan.
Did Todd work at Riot Room ever? I feel like he worked at Riot Room.
I don't know if he might have.
I think that's how he met Candace.
But he was also there all the time.
Yeah.
But I met Dan, Justin, and Keenan. They were all working. Justin was running the union. And maybe I met Dan before then just from being around. But, like, I was in there one night, and I was, like, had this deal going with one of the bartenders at this cash bar. And that's how I was selling all that Molly, because they had all these EDM kids in there. And that was, like, some weird thing I just stumbled into where it was like, hey, maybe I could get this. This is, like, pre-drug. Like, this is pre-me having a drug problem. And I was like, okay, everyone wants this.
Just gonna make some money.
If I could buy this cheap, dude, I would take my whole paycheck from the body shop I worked at on Friday and go buy pills and just go take them to this dude and give him a couple, and then I'd cut him in on like $1 a piece or something. You know, solid deal. And I never had to give anybody. He did all the work. I didn't have to do anything. I just hung out there in case there was a problem.
CEO.
Yeah,
know? Like you figured it out.
I figured it out. And one
dream.
night I was sitting in there. It was like right as the bar opened, and Justin was like freaking out. He's like, I need a door guy. I need a door guy. And then somebody was like, Tyler's got a liquor card, because I had done a little stint down at old Boulevard Nights.
Oh man, I didn't know. I've heard you talk about that, and then one day I was driving down Southwest Boulevard, and I was like, oh, that's Boulevard Nights.
Yeah.
Kelsey's brothers played a show there before.
Oh, yeah.
It's wild going down Southwest Boulevard on like Friday night, Saturday night, and I mean like this is peak Boulevard Night season, like.
Yeah.
You know.
I was in it.
And then like go by on a Sunday morning and just look at all the broken car window glass laying on the ground.
I worked there for like 3 weeks. I think I did 3 weekends. And on the third weekend, they didn't think I was like, I had like a pompadour and shit. I was like full-blown greaser. But they kept putting me in like the smoking lounge, and they wouldn't put me inside the club. Well, dude, all night long, I'd have like street guys coming up to me, like shooting me props, just dudes I knew from the other things I was doing, right? Like outside of there. I was like king of the middleman. Somebody would be like, hey, I need this. I'm like, I've got a guy. And I'd go work that deal to make my quick little money as like a courier, basically. And dudes would just come up to me all night long and be like, they would like hand me $100 bill to let them smoke a blunt out in the smokers lounge, which it was in between the two buildings and there was no roof. So I didn't care, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good trade.
And then on after the third week, they pulled me into the office when we were cleaning, and they were like, "Hey," they were like, "How do you know all these people?" They're like, "We know that you're letting these guys. Like these guys give you 100. They're tipping you to let them smoke weed. We don't care about that. It's whatever. Like we run a hip hop club. But how do you know all these guys?" And I just went, this is kind of weird. And I was like, they're just my friends, you know? So then a day later, I went to some people and was like, hey, this happened last night. And they're like, you're quitting that job. And I went, okay. And I quit. They were like, that guy's a federal informant. I was like, oh, that could check out. I don't know if that's true, but that was always the word on the street. And I got weird vibes because I was like, why are you asking me all these questions? Like, I'm just a door guy. Like, I didn't take any money. I don't know what you're talking about. You got footage? I don't know what you mean. That guy just gave me 5.
Yeah.
He's just smoking a Black and Mild, you know? It was weird. I had a lot of fun working in the clubs, being a door guy. I met a lot of people.
I could never get a job in the service industry. I tried, too. Like, I got a job at an Outback Steakhouse once, and they gave me a shirt. Mm-hmm. Went through an interview. I was going to be a busser. And I then they were like, the boss was like, call back next week and I'll give you the schedule. So I called back. I was like, somebody else answered, and I was like, where's Don? He's supposed to give me a schedule, and they're like, oh, why? And I was like, well, he said, I'm supposed to come on this week. And they're like, well, Don got fired, and he doesn't work here anymore, and we don't actually need anybody else. And so I was like, really? I can't,
yeah,
no job?
I kept trying to get a job at a grocery store when I was like 15. And then a couple times I went to be a bagger, and then they'd be like, you're hired. And then they're like, we'll call you on Tuesday. And then they'd never call. And then a week later I'd call and they'd be like, or one time I got called, they didn't call me and tell me when I was supposed to start working. And they just called me, they're like, why, you called no-show 2 days in a row. I was like, I didn't even know I worked for you. You never even said anything.
2 years ago I got a job at Guy Fieri's bar at
Power and
Light. Went, did an interview. They did a background check on me, everything. Took my ID, ran my credit.
Yeah, because that's a heavy deal to work, because you work for Power and Light, technically.
It was a big deal, background check, full deal. It took a long time. And then they didn't need me. They're like, actually, we're kind of overstaffed. We thought we needed bar backs. And so I said, oh, well, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
And then Dan, I was like, I'll work in your kitchen. And he was like, you can start this time. And then I ended up going back to work.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, as much as I'd love to,
can't really work in the kitchen.
Yeah, the union job, probably the better option.
Yeah, probably the best.
Probably much better.
Union gig for the best.
For the best, longevity.
I never advanced.
I've never had a...
in the service industry, I had no desire to be a bartender. I didn't want any of that. I was very happy. I was working a hustle. Not against the business. But, I went into the riot room and very quickly took control of the door guy situation. And the guy that was there, had a problem with me. That was, the head door guy. And he didn't last long. He ex-nayed himself out. And so then I became real tight with Timmy. And then after that, it just became a thing where I was kind of crazy at the time. And I didn't give a shit. I wasn't scared of nobody. So just based off of that, all the other door guys would kind of took a lead from me. But dude, there was crazy. We would do, I had drug dealers that would pay me to if you wanted to come in here and deal drugs, what are you dealing? And also, you gotta pay me. You can't just come on the patio, bro. It's pay to play
little
here.
Tyler Mafia man.
Yeah, dude. I used to. Oh man, I love the Czar Bar. They had a. Did you ever go to the Czar Bar?
I've been to the Czar Bar. Yeah.
So they had the stage and the bar was real long.
I never understood why that bar closed. I thought it was great.
It was. They couldn't ever get nobody to do the kitchen right, so you couldn't have food. And then, dude, we'd have wild shows.
I went to cool
me
shows
and Zach. That's where I met.
Shows.
Yeah, that's where I met Zach Jones.
Oh, really?
Zach was a bartender there. So, dude, there was times where me and Zach Jones were facing down 100 people at these hip hop shows, being "Fuck you, dude!" No, you don't run the show. I run the show. And it was me and Zach being well, we're about to get fucking beat up, but whatever. But man, down the hallway past the kitchen was the bathrooms in the back, and that bathroom was fit 4 people. It was a restaurant bathroom, but there was a mirror in front, on the wall, and it was just so from the door I could look down the fucking alley of the bar, and I could see. And I'd see a line for the bathroom, and I'd be yo, what the fuck is going on, man? And it's why can't you can't? I could see people pushing the door, the door's locked. And every time I already knew it, somebody's just in there doing drugs. So, dude, I would just be somebody watch the door, and somebody'd watch the door. I just walk to the back, kick the door open, and whoever was holding the door would end up behind the door, and then I would just go through their pockets real fast, take whatever they had, and throw them at the bar.
You out.
And then they would, every time, they'd be like, can I buy my stuff back? I'm like, yeah, I guess. Like, here's your wallet. I'll keep your money.
I wanted to have a door job at Buzzard Beach.
Yeah, I didn't like... I went to the
like
Buzzard
that place
Beach,
now. I'm
but I wasn't like ever... I don't know. It was one of those places where, like, there's always somebody, like... You know, I feel like if you're into politics at all, right? Like, I was thinking about this in the last week. Like, if you're into politics at all, like, super hard in any direction, it doesn't matter if you're like, I'm a communist, or like, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat. It's just like, yeah, you're like on a power trip, right? Like, you're trying to let people know you're right. And it's like, I'm a thug. I don't like the cops, and I like the government less. So I don't care. I don't care about any of that. Like, the only time I vote is if they're like trying to take my rights away. Like, that's it. Or somebody else's rights away. Like, we should all be allowed to, within reason, do whatever the fuck you want, right?
I've voted in every election since I was 18.
Yeah. But there's always somebody up there bothering me about something. I can't believe you.
Yeah, it's kind of a political place. I like that place because I feel like you go in there and there's always somebody there you knew.
Yeah, I liked Johnny Dare's bar, actually.
Oh, the cut your necktie off and staple it to the ceiling.
Yeah, that was just always like full of dirt bags. That place was kind of cool.
That place went through like a bunch of different iterations of names. Like it was like called like Johnny Dare's,
and then it was like it was the Gusto at one point. The Gusto was tight. Gusto was cool. The old Gusto was cool. That was a rad place. The Hurricane was badass back in the day. Even before the Riot Room existed, the Hurricane was cool. The Union was cool because it was in that basement. And
the best bar in Westport was Westport Saloon.
The Saloon was pretty good.
The Saloon, live music every night. You go in there anytime, different people. Anytime. You know, like one night there'd be this kind of like poppy country band, and the next night there'd be like a bunch of train hoppers. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I like these train hoppers. Like, let's see what we got going here.
Yeah. No, it was cool. I don't think there's any live music in Westport anymore.
Probably not.
There's not.
Maybe like a piano bar.
Yeah, it sucks, man.
There's definitely like, a piano bar.
People don't. It sort of fucked up the music community here, I feel like, because it did that thing where it like I've been talking about with the car culture, right? Like, it needs to be brought back together. It like something happened and it shattered it, and everybody's just these like little pockets where before, like, if you were a musician, you just knew all the other musicians. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't matter if you, like, I had this crazy rock band, but I also knew, like, you know, the people in country bands, and people that played surf music, and people that played punk rock, and people that just, you know, rappers. Like, that was like the scene, you know, and it didn't matter if you were a musician and you were making music. Like, come be a part of this. Hey, let's collaborate. Like, what do you think about this? What would you do on this? You know what I mean? And then somewhere it just kind of like, and now it's like all the punk rockers like, we only listen to punk rock and we only play in basements. And it's like, I went to one basement show to see Total Sham, and some kid came up to me and was like, sir, is it okay if I smoke? And I'm like, I don't give a fuck, kid. Like, this isn't my house. I ain't your dad.
I'm just some dude.
I don't give a shit. And then after that, I was like, I'm never going to a basement. I'm too old to go to basement shows. I never liked going to basement shows back in the day. They sound like shit.
I've been to more basement shows than I care to
admit to.
I mean, I was there. Like, basement shows I didn't even want, like hardcore. That's just like, and it's like, why am I here? Like,
what are we even?
Why did I pay $5 for this? Like, there's not even
$5 to go to this basement show. Well, I guess, you know, we've been going for like an hour. I'm trying to limit the episodes because they're getting a little out of hand sometimes. But right now, Mylan is building a Model A.
Yes. 28 Model A.
28 Model A. He sold his Model T he had. Well, tentatively.
Partially.
Partially sold.
Still partially sold.
Sold it to a communist. Kevin.
Sold the Model T.
Sold the Model T.
Enjoyed the Model T.
Enjoyed it. Great.
Put miles on the Model T.
The Archie car.
is great.
The jalopy.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
I like taking people for rides in the Model T.
Yeah.
You know, and then it was like this perfectly stock Model T, and then I was like, let's lower it a little bit. Like, let's add turn signals to it. Like, let's do some cool stuff. Like, let's make this thing handle.
Right.
You know, because before when I got it, you'd hit a bump, and like the steering wheel would like rip out of your hand.
Right.
You know, because they've got really like twitchy steering.
Yeah.
And, you know, it would go into just like death wobble. Like, they're unsafe to back up at any sort of speed because it'll rip the steering wheel out of your hands and they flip over.
Right.
That's like a common thing.
Right.
You know, it happens. Like, there's a guy that was like the president of the Model T Club, and he was backing down a hill, flipped over, killed him. Dead.
Dead.
Dead. Then
Death
there's these,
by
like,
T.
Death by T. There's also another guy, president of the Model T Club, dead. He had the 2-speed rear end, so you can like shift between high-low. Well, you can get stuck in neutral, and if you don't have the accessory brakes, because Model T has a brake that grabs the drive shaft.
Right.
So if you get stuck in neutral in the rear end, you don't have any brakes at all, because you can grab that drive shaft, doesn't spin, doesn't do anything, but your wheels are still turning. He was going up like an incline in the mountains, off the edge, dead.
Dead.
Dead. And
Death
so
by
I've got that 2-speed rear end in my car. Hardly ever use it because I'm like, well, I like living.
Death by T is a real thing.
Death by T. I mean, everything's a predator when you're Model T. Other cars, pedestrians. You know, the
Model T.
The Model T will kill you.
Might be the biggest predator.
You got your timing advance too far. Breaks your arm when you're cranking it up.
Yeah.
But it's a cool car. You know,
cool.
I get it. You know, you got to kind of be sympathetic to the car when you work on it.
Yeah.
You know, it's so simple, but it's
complex.
It's almost more like a modern car
right.
than a lot of just kind of old cars.
Right.
Because, you know, it's got like each cylinder has its own coil. You know, it has a crank trigger that, you know, tells each coil to fire. Like, has I don't know, I guess that's where the similarities to a modern car ends. That's about it. You know, but it was forward thinking. It was cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of like weird things.
And a lot of that weird stuff's still on the Model A. Like it's all.
And they made a ton of them, and they're affordable. Like a fully restored Model T is like a $10,000 car.
Right.
And you could go buy 10 of them today. That's how like the Whistling Diesel guy. He bought, you know, a bunch of them because it's like it's nothing.
Well, and they used to be really expensive.
So Model Ts like hit like a high water mark in like 1978. And the cars cost the same now as they did in 1978. No inflation.
Yeah.
Like, they were $10,000 restored in 1978. They're $10,000 right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was a lot more money in 1978. Right. But, you know, the Model T, it's, I like the anachronism of driving it. You know, it's kind of old time. It's the closest thing, I always tell people, like, it's the closest thing you can have to a time machine.
Right.
Because what you're experiencing when you're driving this old car is exactly what somebody from 1909 to 1926 was experiencing.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of those people never knew how to drive. It was their first vehicle they ever drove. And if you hop in a Model T, it's basically the first car you're ever going to drive like that.
Man,
there's nothing else like it.
I wonder how many people had death by T, dude.
All the time. Oh.
I'm like,
I mean, they made 15 million, you know, figure like, I don't know, a couple percent.
At least a mil.
At least a mil. I mean, the windshields.
How many people got shot to death driving a Model T during Prohibition?
I don't know. Hard to say.
That might have been heavy Model A period.
Yeah, that was a little more Model A period. Like,
Johnny's freaking
out. But yeah, like, I mean, even the windshield on a Model T will kill you. Like, it's made out of plate glass. So if it breaks, it turns into like a bunch of daggers.
Yeah, daggers.
You know, dead. Death by Model T.
Death by T.
Death by T. But it's still a cool car. And, you know, the most dangerous part about driving it today, though, is other drivers just stopping.
Right.
Like, there will be looky-loos. You'll be driving along, and they'll just stop. And it's like, are you going to go? Like, you know, they're like trying to take a picture of you as they're stopped in the middle of an intersection. It's like, bud, you're about to get mashed.
That happens in every old car, though.
Yeah.
That's like driving the van.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you know, pretty soon, you know, driving the Model T goes from like, you know, all these people are waving at and you're waving back to like pretty soon you're just like flipping them all off because you're like, what are you looking at? It's just a car.
Well, for all the people that give me thumbs up, yesterday when I broke down, none of them sure wanted to help me push my van out of the middle of the road.
Oh, that one amigo helped you out.
That one amigo. Shout out to that nice Hispanic gentleman in the painting van who helped me push my car.
He's a van man.
He's a van man.
Brother of the van.
Brother of the van.
Dude,
there's one other guy that like was in a work truck and he pulled over to like initially and blocked the road so I could crawl under the van so nobody would run me over.
That's pretty cool.
That was
that's
cool.
Nice.
And then I realized it was no bueno. I thought it was just an easy repair. Then I was like, wait, there's something wrong here. It's like, oh, this whole bar broke in half. Old Ford parts guys are very similar to Mopar guys.
It's you know,
they're
like,
900 years old and they don't want to sell anything.
Yeah, you gotta.
And they don't use the internet.
You gotta meet the guy. You know,
you gotta find the guy. You hear about the guy, and then like that guy that I got the one steering column for that didn't work for the van, that Matt Frost guy.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll hit up my landlord. I've literally never heard back from him again. It's like, can you just link me up with that guy that has all the Mopar parts?
When like it's like, oh, there's another guy that's into Mopars. Like, I should probably talk to him. You know, and that's what it would go through in my mind.
Right.
Like, when I meet Toyota people, I'm like, oh, like...
Oh, you like Toyotas?
I like Toyotas.
I like Toyotas.
I love Toyotas. I got a lot of Toyotas.
Hey, you like Honda Civics? Oh, me too.
I love Honda Civics. Honda Civics tuner cars, that's the closest we can get to real hot rods today. Tuner cars.
Yeah.
Kids building Miatas and... I don't know.
I started it.
Yeah.
I was in it.
Know,
That's
it's
where I
about
started.
Kids that just want to go fast.
It's like those are the.
That's the real deal.
They were Honda Civics were my generation's Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
Because that's how all the guys that are like Eric's age and a little older started, because they could, you know, the Gen Xers, they could buy a Volkswagen Beetle for like $500. And then you drove that until you could afford a hot rod.
And there's a whole catalog full of aftermarket parts you can stick on. There's cool stuff you can do. And the parts are cheap.
Cheap parts.
Cheap parts. I love Hondas.
Hondas rule.
You know?
Actually, remind me, I got a deal. I might have a Honda deal for you.
Don Honda.
A little.
They call me Don Honda.
Don Honda. A little 5-speed 4-door Civic. Like in the 500 range.
Ooh.
Owned by a mechanic.
Nothing, no. It's probably terrible then.
No, not terrible.
I normally try to avoid the mechanic going.
Well-kept car, but it was a second vehicle and it's just been sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know it's got a clutch in it. It's a nice ride.
I
thought about purchasing it, but I don't need a third vehicle.
Maybe
I need air conditioning.
Does it have air conditioning?
Yeah, it does have AC. It's probably cheaper than.
Maybe you need a Honda Civic for a summer, you know? Like,
no, because then I'd put like an intake on it.
No, you don't have to put anything on it.
I know I don't have to. But it's not about what I have to do. It's about
what I want to do.
What I have to do. I have to hot rod everything.
Yeah, but you know, you could put an intake on it. Like you find something to swap meet, and you're like, okay, this is $10.
Yeah, $10.
We can throw it on. Like,
yeah, you don't see a lot of. That's one thing. Is like you don't see a lot of tuner guy stuff at the swap meet. I figured you would.
Yeah, where are they?
Where are they selling stuff?
Marketplace.
We should start a whole ass show where we just
import swap meet.
No, where we like another one of these shows where we just show cool shit we find on Marketplace for sale.
Look at this. Yeah, we could have
Marketplace
like a green screen. We're like, and look at this.
And look at this.
Projected up on the wall. I'd like that. One of my best friends, Mark McCrae, the guy that you got the grill from for the Dodge.
Yeah.
I remember we used to sit at his house on his desktop PC looking at page after page of Craigslist. Just looking. Like looking at cars and being like, wow, this is a deal, and then we'd go get it.
Dude, we used to read Auto Trader instead of paying attention in class. You'd go buy you a biscuit and gravy on the way to school, and then you'd get the new issue of Auto Trader and just oogle at all the cool cars.
Yeah, see, I would definitely thumb through the Auto Traders, but all that stuff was so far out of my price range, you know. It's just
Auto Trader before Craigslist, right? That's where you could find. They were regional, so you could get the one just for your area.
Yeah.
Right? And so it would just be cars for sale, and you would thumb past all the new shit and go right to the back, and it'd be like, here's this clapped out Chevelle here's a 70 Chevelle for $500, misfires like crazy. It'd be like ads like that. But then, like, you know, after that that guy killed that Auto Trader lady that time, the Making a Murderer guy from Netflix. They claim he killed her.
Never heard about that.
You never saw that show, Making a Murder?
I've got a wife that likes stuff like that
What's his Stephen Avery? The Stephen Avery case. I need to see what's going on with that. He swears he's innocent, but this lady came out to take a picture of his van after he had gotten released from prison for being wrongfully convicted, and then immediately somebody pins a murder on him.
If the shoe fits,
could have been him. Could not.
I don't know. You know, I don't hear about stuff like this. I
think that was why they named it that. Like, did this guy become a murderer because he was in prison? You know what I mean? Or like, was it always there? Like, did he even do it?
We now have a super criminal.
Super criminal. He's no Tiger King.
No Tiger King.
Oh yeah, I love all that shit.
Couldn't get into Tiger King.
I'm like a housewife with true crime stuff. It's like very interesting to me.
I mean, it's interesting. I watch this stuff too. But
I just listen to it. Dude, like 60 Minutes has a podcast where it's just the audio of the television show. It's way better than watching it.
I get it. I mean,
like lets you have like the creative mind. Like I make up what these people look like in my head.
I don't
you know
need
what
to
I mean?
see them. I mean, I need to see it. I live that life. Like I listened to 8 to 12 hours of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Like I've got like the premium YouTube, so there's no commercials, and so it's like, oh, Tyler put out a new video. I'll listen to this 3 times.
Yeah.
You know.
Mylan will be making his Black Magic TV debut, helping me work on the van on the next episode.
Seen it here first.
You saw it here first. Hey.
/ Black Magic cameraman.
/ Also the cameraman on the yet to be released World of Wheels extravaganza. He's the official cameraman now for when I go live on the street.
Steady like a rock.
Steady hands.
Steady hands.
True union man.
True union man. Company man.
Doesn't take pee breaks.
No.
Just stands there and carries the... Actually, Mylan was like, I could carry that camera. And then, because me and Dan were doing it, and we were both like, God, Jesus. And then 10 minutes into carrying it, Mylan realized how heavy the camera rig is.
This thing is terrible. This is so heavy.
It's pretty heavy. It's just awkward.
It's cool,
It's real awkward. No, it's
easy to run. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a fun time. We need to do that again at some more shows this summer.
Should have gone to art school.
Should have went to art school. I don't need to go to...
Why do I need to go to art school? I got Black Magic TV?
Yeah, we don't need to go to art school. We're just doing it. That's what I realized. Like, I didn't need to go to any school. We got a guy that can teach us
painting. We got video, it's the official art school of KCK.
Yeah, we can start... Nico and I were always talking about doing a show, like a children's show, where we maybe we could theme it for adults, but where we dressed like wizards and showed you how to do arts and crafts.
Oh, cool.
we were sitting there like, how would we make the most money? We were like, oh, I'll make a show about 2 wizards that teach you how to do arts and crafts.
Everybody likes wizards. Like in the Midwest, isn't that the thing? At like elementary, middle school, you like make like your clay wizard that holds.
Yeah.
There's like some lady that travels around to all the schools and like teaches the kids and like some.
There's always something like that. Yeah,
we're gonna make the wizard. I never got to learn how to make the wizard.
Me either.
I quite the ceramicist at one time.
Yeah, I got kicked out of every art class I was ever in because I was just always trying to do like buck wild things, like way far out stuff. And
I did.
They're like, I grew up out in like but I grew up in a place in a time where like being the way far out punk rock kid at the high school wasn't okay. So
yeah, you're out there in the sticks.
I was out there. Just west of the city, in the county. We're out in the county. Out there in the county in Bonner Springs. But yeah, no, I would start making like, you start putting OE on all your artwork and then like trying to make like wild shit. They're like, yeah, no, you're not doing this. And it's like, well, fuck you.
Man, I was just getting like a visual image of Waterboy and his mom being like, "It's the devil!
It's the devil! It's the devil!" That's how this art teacher was. She had like a steel plate in her head from Vietnam or something. She was
all my art teachers were super cool. I'm still friends with some of them.
The only cool teacher, I had two cool teachers. One of them was an English teacher. She was also like the newspaper teacher, you know, and she did these like Photoshop classes and shit. And like one time, I almost got arrested over. I got arrested for death threats on a police officer because of a creative writing project I did. Fuck you, Michael Lopez. This kid snitched me out to his, like, he told his dad, like, took this story and was like, this is about you. And it was a whole deal. I almost got into a lot of trouble my senior year. But that lady had my back. The teacher did. She was like, no, you're not doing this to this kid. A couple teachers did. But then I had this English or history teacher, Mr. Helfrich. And he was like way into music. And he like turned me on to like Ministry and Robert Johnson, and then I would bring him in, like we would swap CDs with each other. But he left from teaching. He was cool. He was a cool fucking dude. Like real deal, like open-minded, like taught you how to like think about things.
I feel like I had teachers like that. Yeah. Maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe we were lucky for that.
Yeah, really, like not strict, like semi-strict, but not to like a dick at Headish Point. But he left there to go work at he was at the Pentagon when they crashed the fucking plane on 9/11. That happened in my senior year of high school. We were all sitting there. I remember that was just, somebody brought that up the other day, and I was just like, whoa. Yeah, what a wild time. Imagine being 18 and then being like, we're bringing back the draft. And it's like, oh, fuck.
You're like, oh, no.
I turned 18 like a month after 9/11.
You did not want me.
Yeah, like, no, you know what, me, I'm fat and I hate you. Luckily, they didn't bring that draft back. That would not have been cool. Instead, I went to work on cars.
Yeah. The exciting life.
The exciting life of auto. No, that time it was just auto repair.
Just auto repair. I'm glad. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I should have pursued mechanical repair, because like I'm good at fixing stuff.
It's not too late.
It's not too late.
You can always leave that dirty ass union, dude.
Yeah. Well, I could just stay in that dirty ass union and just become a heavy equipment mechanic. I do stuff like that. You know.
You probably should do that. You probably make more. Oh, you'd never get rained out.
I'd make the same amount of money.
And you never.
Except you got to lay in the dirt and you got to lay in the mud, and you're going to be covered in grease from head to toe. Like, you know, like a mechanic gets a little grease on their hands, you know, maybe a little on their forearms. Like, when you work on heavy equipment, like, you just got to accept it. You might as well just smear a little on to start.
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, well, I'm not afraid to I can't get any dirtier than I'm already now.
But then in your off season, you could just go work on like a gold mine or something.
I could. I worked at I worked on the river. I used to run a river boat.
Sand.
That was crazy. Operation. Yeah, the sand mine, which was it was a gold mine. Like,
right.
I mean, everything that we had, like you watch those Discovery Channel shows about the gold mines in Alaska.
It's the same dredging
stuff.
It's
all the same stuff. It's like, oh, I know how to run that. I can run that. I can run that. Like,
and it's just
the company I worked for talked about trying to buy a gold claim in Alaska, because they're like, we know how to do this. We know how to run this stuff.
They saw Gold Rush, got inspired.
Yeah. There was a guy that would come to our sand mine and under our separators that like separated out the different sands. Mm-hmm. All the fine sand would just accumulate down at the very, very bottom and then rush back out to the river. Well, like, he would go dig all the he would just like fill his bed of his truck up with 5-gallon buckets, and he'd get gold out of it.
Yeah.
But it's, it's like you got to pan a whole 5-gallon bucket to get some dust, some gold dust out of it.
Yeah.
But
he was doing it.
He was doing it. There's that stuff. I mean, all the time on like Facebook Marketplace, I see this guy that sells like gold prospecting stuff, and he makes it here in town. And I look at the guy before, and I'm like, man, is that the guy that used to come to the mine?
Probably.
But like,
it probably is.
I worked at the mine, and I had these ideas of like Mark Twain, like working on the riverboat.
Yeah.
And it was cool for about a week.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you're out here at night, running 24 hours a day. And
all
you're
by yourself.
Middle of the night, on a boat, in the river, all by yourself.
No light.
No lights.
Yeah.
But, it's kind of cool.
But that river, dude, out there, like, and we talked about this because where Mylan is explaining is in the town I grew up in, is where on the river this operation is. And just west of there, down that old highway, it ends in the caves. But dude, there are some like weird properties that are out in fields right next to the river that are like old farmhouses and stuff that like, dude, there's some like, there's like, there is teenagers spray painting Satan on the wall, and there are things that I saw that were like, oh,
it's wild.
like somebody may be out here trying to conjure up a demon. Like, there's some dark arts happening out there in that part of town.
There's crazy. I mean, I've been all up and down the riverbanks of the Kansas River from this job, you know, just tromping through the woods because we'd have to run cables into the woods, and you'd come across all sorts of stuff. Like, I mean, old dredges that are in the middle of the woods, like huge, you know, like 200 foot long, these huge things that are pulled up in the woods, and, you know, the earth's just retaking it. And you'd never know it's there.
Right.
You know, like old houses, like barns, and, you know, all sorts of stuff, like old railroad cars that are on their sides. I mean, there's just crazy stuff that you come across. You know, I found like a huge like Indian axe head. I found like we used to come up with like buffalo skulls out of the river.
Yeah.
You know, like just bones all the time. Like, I mean, just like mountains of like petrified bones. Like to the point that I like was saving stuff because I was like, oh, this is cool. And then it's like, oh, I got a whole 5-gallon bucket full. Whoop, off into the river you go. But you know, everything ends up in the river.
Yeah.
You know, like old cars, like, you know, on the sides of like the banks of the river, I know where there's like old cars that are like, when the water's really low, you can like see it. Like north of 435 in the river, there's an old salvage yard that's now in the river. They changed, like the river kind of changed course or whatever, and there's this like lowlands that's now in the river. And there's all these like 30s cars that are just, and you can like see the tops of them.
Whoa.
They're just like right along the riverbank. It's like kind of crazy. I mean, they're just like Swiss cheese. There's nothing you can get off of it, but it's there. You know,
found a Model A in the woods once out in Bonner. That was like between the Boy Scout camp and 110th Street. We decided to walk all the way through the woods right there, and there's this Model A where it looks like somebody wrecked, like driving through the woods back in the day. And it's just like over there on its side, the earth is half taking it back, and it's a whole ass car. We probably could go find it.
It wouldn't be my first ditch car.
I know exactly where we walked from, so I know how to get there.
That sounds like probably.
But those woods are kind of sketchy, dude, because there's like a big cat that roams out there now. There's like a big cat out there, like a big cat, like bigger than you and I cat. That
the legendary big cat.
The legendary big cat of Bonner Springs.
A power cat.
Real deal. Didn't believe it until my buddy's dad.
I've heard stuff.
Some friends of mine, their dad was the head Boy Scout, head of the Boy Scout camp, and they lived at the camp when we were younger. And we would go down there and hang out. That was the first place I played online video games because they had Ethernet set up.
Yeah.
We would do LAN setups. We would play Halo on Xbox One on LAN. But we went out there, and Rick told us, like, he's like, you guys be careful, because there is that shit about the big cat. He's like, there's a real deal. There's wild stuff, dude. There's some wild things. Bonner's a weird place, dude, because it's one of those places where people think it's like, oh, it's such a great place to live, but then you realize, like, oh, this is where, like, children get beaten, and, like, wives murder their husbands, and you never, like, when I was a kid,
it's a little trailer park, you know, a little whiskey tango,
but you never hear about it, right? Like, they keep it. It's one of those places where, like, it's like it's middle class and upper middle class people now, so they keep that shit out of the press, like, you know what I mean? But like, when I was a kid, I thought only one murder had happened in our town, the way they made it seem, all the adults. Turned out there was a whole lot of wild shit going on that we just never knew about.
They're killing everybody out here.
Yeah, they're killing everybody out here. The cops all got indicted by the feds not long ago. All the police from when I was a kid. Ran them all off finally.
Was that Ron Gronowski or what was that dude?
Grabowski or Golubski.
Roger
Golubski.
Officer Golubski.
Officer Golubski lived in Bonner, or lived in Edwardsville, and went to high school with his nephew. And a couple times, that kid was a Nazi. He claimed to be a Nazi back then. So it was like on site. If that dude showed up, I would be like, yo, I'm going to kick the shit out of you. And we'd be at a show. He'd show up because he was into punk rock. And like, get out of here, man. Like, but that dude, I had a couple run-ins with that guy, with that cop when I was at late teens, early 20s. Not tight. Not a cool dude.
Now you're out of Bonner.
I hate it. I won't go back.
Yeah.
I won't ever live there again.
You don't have to go. Nobody.
I was there today for 10 minutes, and that was more time than I prefer to spend in Bonner Springs ever. Not a cool place. Nothing cool down there.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got nothing against Bonner Springs, but I like the Moon Marble. Oh no, that's
Moon Marble's there. Moon Marble's cool.
Moon Marble's
The toy store's cool. Bruce is a cool guy.
I really want to get the guy from Moon Marble to make me shift knobs, glass shift knobs.
He'd make you one.
I think he would.
He'll make you anything.
Yeah.
You need a bong? He's got it.
I love that guy. I remember going there as a kid. Like, that was the coolest place. Moon Marble. Go to Moon Marble. Support Moon Marble. Buy some marbles.
Moon Marble.
Lose your marbles at Moon Marble.
You can get everything to blow glass there.
You can blow glass there.
You can take a class.
Watch them make some marbles. It's cool.
Watch them make some marbles. All right. Well, where do they find you at on Instagram? What's your name this week? What are you at? Not Mike? Are you back on Not Mike?
Am I Not Mike or Not Koosh? I kind of like to pirate people's Instagram handles, like if they change it, like swoop in. There's I was Not Koosh for a while when my friend Koosh changed his, and then like there's like people from his job messaging me like, hey, could you come work? Because they didn't realize it wasn't him.
Yeah.
But I am.
I think you're back on Not Mike.
But no, it's let's see.
Or is it Monster Truck Mike?
Hold on, let me get my tablet out.
His tablet.
My tablet.
His ancient scroll.
My ancient scroll.
We might be running out of time.
Monster _truck _Mike. Monster Truck Mike.
Monster Truck
Find
Mike.
me. I'm getting ready to start a selling page because I've got a
Mylan's
plethora of
Ford parts. All right. Well, this has been a new episode.
Part 1.
Mylan, thank you. Hopefully, if you guys have any cool decorations you'd love to send for the set, I'd appreciate it.
Ring that bell.
And, do all the good things.
Like, subscribe.
All that
thumbs
stuff.
Up. Share with your friends.
We'll see you next time.